Marketer of the Day, episode 652. Top line results. Create an inbound organization through helpful, educational, attractive marketing with Todd Hockenberry.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're chatting with Todd Hockenberry, and Todd is the owner and founder of Top Line Results, which is a global leader in educating and helping B2B companies adapt to internet-driven changes in buying behavior. And Todd is also the co-author of a book called Inbound Organization: How to Build and Strengthen Your Company's Future Using Inbound Principles. And you might be thinking, all right, that's all great, but how does this help me? Well, Todd helps business owners and leaders understand that mission matters, that culture is destiny, and that the way your prospects and customers want you to market, sell, and service them is changing. And most importantly, we're going to discuss what to do about it. So, Todd, glad to be talking to you.
Robert, it's my pleasure to be on the show today, and thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if I totally get what your shtick is, but it seems that in these last few years, I mean, stuff has changed so much. I mean, you go to Target, you go to the grocery store, and there's like self-checkout. You take your phone out, you hit a button, and a car just pulls up. It seems like the old days of, waiting in line for groceries or waiting an hour for a car to pick you up is changing. And it just seems like we all have that decision to make of, are we going to get with the times, or are we going to get left behind and wonder what the heck happened?
Well, I like that idea of a shtick. I'm going to have to, and we're going to do this as a routine, I think, maybe.
All right.
The book, let's start with the book, Inbound Organization. It really came from a process of consulting and working with a lot of different companies over the last 10 years. And inbound, the word inbound really started with HubSpot and some other folks maybe 10, 12 years ago, really applied to marketing, where you would create helpful educational content online, optimize it, share it, and attract people to you as opposed to interrupting people. So that was really where that term started to be used. And we've spent a lot of time with B2B companies, and in particular industrial and manufacturing companies or people that service that space. And when we started about 10 years ago, companies in that space were not doing anything inbound at all. I mean, it was very minimal, and websites were still looked like they were from 1997, very product oriented, not really customer oriented, and it was more about basically just digitizing your hard assets or your printed assets, not necessarily creating an experience online. Well, clearly that's changed, as you mentioned, right? We're used to this kind of Amazon effect where you're used to buying things easily. You're having recommendations and push recommendations from these companies that are helping you and advising you almost on the types of things you might want to buy, and learning your preferences and getting smarter about you and what might fit. Like my favorite app right now that does that is Spotify. I love how it sends me and anticipates the kind of musics I might like, and I get different playlists that are sending me new music to discover, which I just absolutely love. And I think that's a good way to think about the way customers want to be treated today. So back to the book. Inbound Organization was a recognition that the marketing ideas, the inbound marketing ideas, and the kind of principles we're talking about with Spotify and Amazon, it wasn't enough just to have your marketing team be aware of that and understand it. It really applied to every single person in your organization. And again, I deal with a lot of traditional businesses kind of in the manufacturing, industrial, and B2B space, and they're used to kind of saying in a simplified way, we have this product, we have this service, we're going to put it out there and people will just understand what it is and they'll come to us, essentially. I'm simplifying. But the reality is they haven't gone very far in terms of creating a digital experience that is helpful, that's really built from a customer's perspective, that's dealing with their issues and their journey and creating the kind of experience people want to have. And I would just challenge your listeners, if you think this is obvious, think about all the interactions you have with companies that you work with individually throughout the day, and tell me if you think most companies understand and apply these kind of principles and ideas to their marketing. And I would say the answer I would give you is no. If for every cold call I get that's just horrendous, or the crazy LinkedIn outreaches people send, right? You've all gotten these email messages. They just want to connect, and as soon as somebody connects with you, bam, they're selling you and sending you, buy my stuff or sign up for that. it just tells me that most people still don't understand these principles and they haven't applied them in their company. And certainly, if you think about your interactions with a lot of service departments, think about dealing with accounting or finance departments in most companies. Horrible experiences, not customer focused, not about you at all, not about saving you time or making your life easier. It's about covering their butts and checking a box or making their bureaucracy happy. And what we've done with the book is kind of show people how they can take their business as it stands today, start with their mission and work down through their culture, their operating system, how they which is really essentially how they interact internally, how they create strategies to go to market, and then how they market, sell, service in a way that, again, applies these inbound principles across everyone in the organization to deliver that amazing experience customers expect today. So that's really the background of the book, and that's really where it came from. My co-author, Dan Tyre, is actually a senior VP at HubSpot, so I've been kind of connected with them and worked with them for many years. And we kind of got an inside look at how they view the world. And it's very fascinating to see not only how a company like HubSpot sells their product, but also how they operate internally. So, and they really live by those principles as well. So, again, that's the background on the book, and that's a lot of what we do right now is again helping companies align everybody internally so they can deliver that amazing experience their customers expect.
And that's a lot of really good stuff for us to chew on and think about as we're getting started here. And I mean, I completely agree with what you're talking about, where there's the spray and pray method, right? There's a lot of companies out there who are just, they don't know what they're doing. They're leaving things to chance. They're borderline spamming, right? If there's all those messages coming in on LinkedIn and it's just the usual canned response and trying to sell me on stuff, that's not personalizing it for me. That's not a fit with what I'm looking for. Versus, say, if the next song on Spotify comes in, that's like exactly what I wanted. Or if Amazon says you bought this, you might want to buy that. That's exactly what I wanted. And that seems like a way better way of doing things for everyone involved, right? It seems like an easy way for those buyers to deal with things. It seems like if you have your organization trying to help customers, it feels better because you're not just spamming everyone like we're talking about, and you're thinking about that customer experience. And yeah, I totally agree with you that most companies that we deal with, how do we find them? We did a Google search, or we searched on Yelp, or they were just the one that was there, right? They were the easiest ones. They weren't exactly what we needed right there at the right time. And that, I think that's something really powerful to tap into. If we can be like, how you view maybe like Tesla as, well, they're trying to save the world, right? They're trying to get everyone on self-driving electric cars and solar power. That has more of a personality than, say, the accounting department at IBM or something. And so we've been mentioning that you work B2B with industrial and manufacturing companies. So, like, what sorts of companies? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, we've dealt with everybody from kind of publications to capital equipment manufacturers, software companies, service providers, and some of our clients actually are hybrids. They do some B2B and some B2C. So we've been fortunate to be able to work with a wide range of customers, but typically our ideal customer is somebody who's selling to a B2B buyer, right? So I try to define who we help by best describing who they want to sell to or who they help the best. So when we talk about B2B, I like to talk about, we understand B2B buyers and how they consume information and how they can be reached and connected with in an honest, open way that they want to be reached, right? In the end of the day, is B2B people, or there's people, but they have different problems. And if you can show them that you can actually help them solve their problems in their context, they want to hear from you. They want to talk to you, right? But that presupposes a bunch of things. You've got to understand their business. You've got to understand how they make money and how they solve problems and what those problems even are. I mean, if you go into a discovery call or you start talking to a potential client and you start asking them kind of traditional discovery questions, well, what keeps you up at night? And nobody wants to hear that anymore. I mean, it's not going to work. You've got to know what their issues are and what the outcomes they're looking for are before you walk in the door. And then you've got to share how you help them do that. And even ideally, even better, you share with them a different context and say, you're here at this level of performance, and we think you can take you to this level. And they're not even thinking about that yet, right? You've got to have more value than just the product or the service, because in today's world, right, that the internet just levels the field. It just brings competitors into every space in every area from around the world. So everybody's got tremendous amount of competition. It's really hard to differentiate on product and things like service. Those are kind of table stakes. So you've got to do something a little different and go to the next level. And when people reach out to me and you cold call me or you reach me out to me on LinkedIn, I'm kind of an open book. I'm easy to figure out what I do and what kind of business I have, and yet very, very few people ever reach out to me in a way that's actually helpful to me. It's helpful to them if I respond and I actually give them money, right? But it's not helpful to me. They're not really bringing anything to the table for me to start that conversation. And this is where I see it's a company-wide thing, right? Where it's not necessarily, it's still thinking about yourself and satisfying your internal problems. I'll give you a really good example. I'm working with a large publication. Everybody would know their name. I can't disclose it for confidentiality reasons, but you would know their name. And we're trying to deal with a culture where their salespeople are monitored and measured and compensated based on the number of touches they make every day. So it's just a numbers game. They just got to dial for dollars. They just got to hit the phone, make email, send emails. And again, there's no value questioning. There's no evaluation of how well these contacts are engaging or helping people. It's just a matter of, I'm just going to do the numbers, right? So that you can imagine what kind of experience that leads to. And that's what we're talking about, that it's really your mission and culture have to change first. You've got to create a situation where everybody in your company understands what customer focus means, what kind of customer experience you want to deliver, and what their role is in delivering it. And that customer's always got to be in the forefront of your mind. Otherwise, you get like what you're talking about. You get the spray and pray, and you get the spammy cold calls, and nobody likes that anymore, and they just don't work.
Right. And it seems like in that situation you described about, well, you get compensated just based on the number of phone calls. It seems like it leaves it too vague. It leaves it open to, I don't know if it's human error or human ingenuity, but just it becomes a corrupt system, right? Where now it's in people's best interest to just make a lot of phone calls and do a lot of waste of time, as opposed to having those better metrics and those better goals. And you're saying that when you're dealing with these B2B kind of sales situations, cut to the chase, don't do all the old cliche stuff, know their issues, and have something that's helpful to them. And so, like, what does that look like? Because when you say know their issues, I'm thinking, well, is it a matter of you've worked with that industry enough where you know all the usual stuff, or you've done some kind of internet research? Like, how do we know their issues ahead of time, and how do we deliver something helpful up front?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Robert. I love that. That gets to the essence of what value is and how people create value, how they understand value, and how they absorb it. It's very easy to throw around that word value, right? But it's hard to necessarily define it. And so that because it's hard to define, people fall back on product and service, and they talk about features and specifications. We're better than our competitor because of this, and that's easy. So what's hard is to understand value from the other person's perspective. So it's all the things you talked about. I really focus on helping our clients understand how to talk to their current customers and understand the value they're receiving from them, from that company. I'll give you a really good example. I work with a company that makes hydraulic pumps, very specific, tangible pump stuff. It's for construction, and they work with contractors. So when we started working with them, they talked about their pumps, saying, well, our pump can do this faster. It's got this capacity. It does that. And they were engineering kind of specification focused things. And that's how they talked about it. And the canary in the coal mine for me is always looking at their website. How do you talk about yourself and your audience and your marketplace on your website? Is it about your product? Does it list all the features you have? Does it show pictures of your equipment? If I see that on a website, I think this is a company that thinks incorrectly about their marketplace. They're thinking about product and not necessarily the customer. So that's one place I always want to look. So everybody look at your website, and if you're seeing product-based stuff and not customer-based stuff, you're probably not thinking about it correctly. So anyway, back to this company that made the pumps. We started talking to them. We started talking to their clients, and what we found was that their pumps, because they had a higher capacity, could pump more substrate at a given time and in a farther distance, they could actually change the economics of a contractor's business. They could do more work in less time with less people, with less safety issues and less potential problems. So we changed their messaging and we changed the value they bring from, well, we're going to buy this pump and how much does it cost, to let's show you how we can improve the finances of your business. Let's show you how we can get you to finish your projects on time. Let's show you how we can get your same crew to do twice as much work as the crew could do before without our pump. That's a different conversation, right? That's getting to the value of what a contractor really wants to get out of their job. And yes, you got to be out there and you got to talk to these customers. You got to be with them. You got to understand it. And you got to keep asking and never stop asking. I had a really funny story. When I was a sales manager many years ago, I asked my sales guys to go to all their recent customers and ask them why they bought from us. I was trying to ask this question, right? I want to understand what the value was from their perspective. And I had all my salespeople would do it. I had one guy that wouldn't do it. He just wouldn't get me any answers. And I finally called him, shut the door and said, look, why aren't you asking your customers why they bought from us? And he just kind of looked at the floor and said, I'm afraid they'll change their mind. And I think a lot of people have that attitude, right? They're afraid to ask these questions and they're afraid to really probe because they're kind of afraid of what they're going to hear. But you've got to ask those questions and you've got to understand. Because again, if you're targeting a certain market and you're focusing on your right persona and you're focused on the right niche, then those customers that are buying from you, you have to understand in depth what you do and how you do it and how it impacts them from their perspective. Because by definition, your niche, your focus, those people are going to have the same issues. So it's about changing the way you think about what you actually sell. My client that sells pumps really didn't sell pumps. They sold contractor business improvement and profitability increasing. That's what they sold. So easy to say, not always easy to do.
Yeah, and that I think that is a lesson that we all need to be reminded of again and again, because it's so easy to forget, right? That's like marketing 101, that it's not about the thing, it's about what people are looking for that the thing will give to them. But then it's so easy to get stuck in all those details, right? And running that organization or in making the website that shows off all the bullet points, and you say, I want to make sure that this feature and that feature is in there. And it's like, well, that might make you feel great that you stuffed all the little details in there, but if people aren't looking for that, then who cares? And so yeah, I think that in any niche, in any industry, anything that people are doing to try to sell anything, they need to remember that it's about that customer, not about the product, and what brought people to your website or what brought people to call you or reach out to you on LinkedIn, and where are they stuck? What are they looking for? And what would get them to sit up and pay attention? And what's really great about the answer you gave there is to never stop asking, because that thing they're looking for might change, right? Even in something as we might think of it as mundane as hydraulic pumps. Well, you always hear about how there's new space age alloys and steels and concretes and things like that. So it might be the thing that they're excited about now is that ability for the pump to push faster and have more power, but in future years, it might be that it's lighter, or they might be looking for like some specific, I don't know, eco-friendly or easy to assemble sort of stuff. So we might really easily get complacent into thinking it's all about me, or it's all about this feature, it's all about this keyword, but it's like, we need to ask people, what are they looking for? And over the years, that might change, especially in this crazy world we're living in, where next thing you know, you might have a robot come deliver your pizza, right? So you never stop asking, always stay on the ball there. So as we're beginning to wind down and maybe wrap things up, what would you say that a lot of B2B marketers out there get wrong about the growth aspect of growing their companies?
Well, I think it's this conversation we're having right now. I think marketers can go to tactics really fast, right? We get enamored with technology, new tools. We want to try different things, and we forget to go back to the beginning. And it's the why. Why are we doing this? Why do customers care? Why would somebody buy from us versus somebody else? And really, really understanding that and digging deep on it. And then this isn't about just marketing, telling your customers or your prospects. It's about educating your entire company. In my mind, marketing has a responsibility to understand this as better than anyone and educate senior leaders, sales, service, that these are the issues that they really have, and this is what they're looking for. And we all have to be in alignment to deliver that experience. And I think marketers should have the responsibility for doing this, not just go out and run the tactics, because at the end of the day, your strategy is up to you. How you deliver that to your customers and how you communicate that as your tactics, what channels you use. And those should be actually dictated by your customers. Your customers should dictate where you go, because those are the channels they use. And again, I see marketers kind of mix those things up a lot. They look to the customers to kind of help them decide what their strategic direction is, and then they pick the tactics they like. Right. And I like Facebook, so that's where I'm going to go. Well, my customers don't really use it. So I think that's really the biggest thing they get wrong. And you talked about this value idea being kind of a kind of basic marketing thing. And I agree, it is. It's taught early on in the marketing schools. And I actually teach a sales class at a college here in Florida. And we teach it early on, but it's hard. It's hard to practice. And I would challenge you to look at your website, look at your competitors' websites, listen and look at the interactions you have with companies today, and note the ones that do it well. I would suggest that the vast majority of them you touch and work with don't do it very well at all. So that's why I think that's the most fundamental thing marketers get wrong. They don't do this kind of basic thing. Start with value, start with customers, focus on them and work backwards from them, and then figure out what your tactics are.
And now people can be more mindful of that when they look at those competitors, or they think about what got me to buy this or not buy that. Now you can look at it through that new lens of, was it customer centric, and was it ignoring the strategies and going for the tactics instead? Was it going for the cheap gimmicks like marketing with that messenger bot when it's not leading to sales, versus, well, the tactics are the thing that gets you dialed in? And it's really, I think, appropriate too that HubSpot is involved in all of this, because HubSpot, as some people know, is a CRM, a customer relationship manager, where when you make those outbound calls, you deal with those clients, you can take notes about them and keep things personal, right? And so that way you can pull up someone's record and not just have it be a line item in a spreadsheet that you blast. You could say, well, we called this person and they had that problem and we had that discussion and they bought that thing. You can have that whole history of a person and use technology as a way to be personal, not just as a way to blast things. And so if someone here is listening to our conversation here today, Todd, and they say, man, this guy, Todd, he's ticking all the boxes. He's making a lot of sense. I want to reach out and find out more. How can they get the book? How can they find your website? How can they reach out? What's the next step here?
Sure. My website's top-line-results.com. You can connect to the book. It's called Inbound Organization. That's also a website, inboundorganization.com. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles. And look me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you, start a conversation there. That's my social media platform of choice. And if you want to reach out and talk and ask questions, I'd love to do it. I love having these conversations, and I'd love to connect.
Fantastic. So just to recap there, that's top-line-results.com. And you can find that Inbound Organization book there as well. And then don't forget to reach out to Todd, and don't be one of those spammers with the form letters. Have a real conversation. He'll have a conversation with you. His name is Todd Hockenberry. That's Hockenberry. So reach out to Todd Hockenberry on LinkedIn. Go to top-line-results.com and claim the Inbound Organization book. You're going to love it. Your life and your organization and everyone else in your organization will never be the same. So go ahead and do it right now. And thanks, Todd, for stopping by.
My pleasure. Thanks you, Robert, for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Check out the latest episodes of our podcast on the web at marketeroftheday.com, and subscribe to us on iTunes at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes, or search the phrase Robert Plank in your iTunes app to find us there.